Good evening, everyone. This is Charlotte here from Enriching Environments, and it is Tuesday evening. Top Tip Tuesday is on its way to you. And I know that you're being notified at the moment. Thank you very much for joining me. Hi, Nunab. Lovely to see you. And let's just check my hair. How are you? How's your little one? Have a sip of water or waiting for others to join, as I know there were others who wanted to join this evening. And this topic on rewards and punishments, I don't know if you've had the chance to look on my feed about just a couple of quotes and bits of information I put on there, as it's a good, I'm glad to hear it. Rewards and punishments is a really interesting topic for Montessorians, because Dr. Montessori was actually the first educator who realised, or maybe perhaps she wasn't the first person who realised, however, she was the first person that that stated this notion that rewards and punishments were unnecessary and actually counterintuitive. And of course she knew this over 100 years ago, 120 years ago, before we know what we know now about the effects of particularly punishment, punitive behaviour. You know, we've learned so much from neuroscience in the past 30 years, 20 years, to even 10 years of the negative effects that physical punishment, corporal punishment as it was called, has. So that type of punishment. But neuroscience has really shown us what verbal abuse has done as well. It's not just smacking as was done, or caning, which was done only a couple of decades ago. You know, my brother at his school, there was still corporal punishment then. And my brother is, how old's my brother? He's 3 years older than me, so he's 46. So it's not that long ago, you know, if he was 10, 12 years old, you know, that's not that long ago that this type of practice was seen as acceptable in school. I've lost my train of thought now. Yes, so physical punishment, yeah, maybe in the past 30 years we've recognised the damage that does. But neuroscience has told us very, very recently the damage that verbal abuse, emotional abuse does in terms of actually changing the structure of the brain in the early years. And what's really, really interesting is that because we had this amazing shift, we realised that the physical punishment, corporal punishment, was so damaging for children on one end of the spectrum. We then went to the other end of the spectrum, and everything was very rewards-led and praise-led. And a sticker for doing this, or a star for doing that, or a chocolate for doing this, and of course that was done beforehand, but it's almost like there was the other end of the spectrum. I heard a really interesting professor speak a couple of months ago actually about this, saying 20 years ago they were telling people not to smack their children, and now in the past 10 years they've been saying to parents, you've got to say no to your children, you've got to draw boundaries, because there was too much permissiveness on the other end of the spectrum. And rewards and praise and, giving a sticker, for example, for a child going on the potty, or for, eating their peas or broccoli or whatever, turning things into a negotiation in that way where children are manipulated, essentially, into behaving in a certain way. We now know that both ends of those spectrums, hi Helena, both ends of those spectrums, whether it's punishment or it's rewards, we know that both ends of those spectrum are undesirable. And the reason they're undesirable is that it really comes from this: if we think that our children are bad and need to be punished, or we need to bribe them, we need to manipulate them into behaving well, then that means that there's an innate lack of trust in our children from us. So if we're starting from that point that we don't actually trust our children, then that's where we're going to get into this spiral of trying to control behaviour in that way, be reactive rather than proactive. You know, saying that they need a bribe to behave well, or saying that they need to be punished if they behave badly, that's saying a very big statement. That's making a very big assumption that our children are bad to start with and they need to be corrected in some way. They either need to be bribed to behave well, or they need to be punished if they behave badly. So that's quite a messed up way of looking at this tiny, tiny little person in front of you who is, you know, if they're just walking, they're maybe up to your knee if you're tall, and they've been only on the planet for, you know, if they're 1 year old, they've been on the planet for less than 400 days. You know, it's mental to think that we get this idea in our heads that, I don't know, a 2-year-old, we call it the terrible twos, when I think it's us that's terrible rather than the children. We get this idea in our head that it's a battle against our children, and that's really not at all what it is. It's most of it is a battle within ourselves, because we've got this gorgeous little person who won't do as they're told, and quite right, they shouldn't be doing as they're told, because they're meant to push. They are meant to push against our boundaries, because that's how they are secure in our love. So rewards and punishments. If we start from a place of we're erasing the rewards and punishment things, as Dr. Montessori said, and instead let's start from a place where our children are innately good. Our children are whole as they are worthy as they are. We start from a place where everyone needs unconditional love. Children in particular, our children who depend on us for everything in their lives, for food, for security, for warmth, for their very existence. Children, human beings die without love. Okay, so these children of ours need our unconditional love. They do not need us bribing them with stickers and star charts and whatever else people do. And they do not need us punishing them for being childlike. So you may all be screaming at me now, what on earth do we do instead? Because as I said in my post, they get to 4 years old and you're like, wow, they've got the language to argue back to you, and they do argue. They're getting pretty strong, so they can resist, you know, if they want to. So what do we do next? What is it that we do instead of rewards and punishments? How do we move from that space? And this is what I'm going to focus on. How do we move from that space where we are no longer reacting? We are no longer reacting with a punishment or a reward, even if it's like a tame punishment. For example, there was this big fashion, wasn't there, a couple of, maybe 10 years ago, about you know, giving a child a timeout, you know, which was the sort of the naughties equivalent of standing them in the corner, which would have been done in my generation when I was little. So it was like a timeout, and they had to go and sit on a cushion and, you know, and have a timeout, and they weren't allowed to speak to anyone or sit on the bottom step of the stairs in the house or whatever it was. So even that, you know, sitting on the naughty step or having a timeout, that was seen as the gentle version of punishment, but still, I mean, it's massively punitive. It's basically saying, you've behaved in a way that I don't like, so I'm going to exclude you from the rest of family life. I mean, that is a mental way of behaving. Do you do that with your friends? Do you do that with with your partner? Would you like it if someone did you? Do you do that with your work colleagues? You know, it's so bonkers, this way of punishing children or assuming that they're bad and they need to be corrected in some way or bribed or manipulated or punished is so nuts, and I'm sure has got something to do with why we have so many issues in the world with mental health and all of the things that we should be able to rely on our parents' unconditional love. And everyone has their own trauma and everyone has their own wounding from their own childhood. But what we can do is to, hi Carla, what we can do is to start from this place of unconditional love. Rewards and punishments assume that the child is bad. Now, let's start from the place of unconditional love. No matter what our child does, we still love them. We do not want to exclude them from family life. We do not want to send them to their bedroom. We do not want to put them on the naughty step. We do not want to give them a timeout. We don't want to bribe them to sit still in a restaurant or to be nice to their little sister or any of those things. We are trusting that our children are perfect and innately good and whole and are worthy as they are. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at how we can be proactive in this, not reactive. We're not reacting with a punishment or reward because of a situation. We're being proactive beforehand. And I'm going to talk you through what being proactive in discipline, if we're going to call it an umbrella term of discipline. Let me tell you what this means to me, what being proactive in terms of discipline means to me. I'll take a sip of water first. Excuse me. So the first thing we can do in terms of ensuring that we are proactive, so we have to be less and less reactive. The first thing we can do is we can prepare our environment in a way that allows our children the freedom they need, the independence that they need. And I don't know who coined this term of creating a yes space, but it's a brilliant term. So you want to have anything that's accessible to your child must be suitable or safe for them, or it should be okay that they can touch. There's no point having lots and lots of things within their reach that they're not able to touch because they're fragile or because they're dangerous or whatever the reason is, because this is going to create so much conflict all of the time. If we create a space where we are in conflict with them the whole time, because then you're going to have to be reactive, because you're going to have to be stopping your crawling baby from grabbing something. You're going to have to be stopping your 2-year-old from grabbing the TV remote control or whatever it is. And we don't want to get into those situations, because that's when things escalate very, very quickly. And once they escalate, we don't know what to do, because we go into our amygdala, we are triggered, and then we're going to respond from not the best version of ourselves. So create a yes space. A yes space is everything at their level. Sit on the floor. What can they access? Have they got things that are meaningful that they can access at their height? So this is books with the covers facing forward at their height. And this is applicable to any age of child, right up to the age of 6, from a newborn to the age of 6. It's got to be a space where they can access what they need. They need practical life. Practical life is basically cleaning, household tasks. So they need a mop and a broom cut down to their size, a dustpan and brush, a spray bottle and a basket of cloths, so that they can clean the windows and the mirrors and sweep the floor and mop the floor and wipe up any spills that they have. The reason that in an environment set up in this way is so important to move away from being reactive is that when a child has everything they need, there's less frustration. When a child has everything that they need and that meets their interest, meets their needs in terms of interests, then there's going to be less resistance. There's going to be less need for them to push back against us. We're going to have fewer power struggles. There's going to be less resistance, all of those things. That's why the preparation of the environment, and we talk about this a lot in Montessori, because actually that's where it begins. The preparation of the environment is not the be-all and end-all. You can't prepare an environment and then not do anything else. But the preparation of the environment, your home environment, is where you start, because once you have your environment prepared in this way, where it's accessible and simple and ordered for the child, then you see what they need. Then they actually can show you. You learn from them what they need. You learn from them what they're working on. You learn from them when they are at their calmest. You learn from them what work they really, really love to do, whether it's washing a window or mopping the floor or hoovering or whatever it might be. Once you put the environment, we flip this idea on its head that when a child comes, it's not going to change us and we're going to be the same, and my house is going to stay the same. We've got to flip that on its head and actually go, okay, a little person's joining our family, so there needs to be a space for them in each room of the house, a space for them to be autonomous, to be independent, to gain more independence in each room of the house. So in the sitting room, then it's the books with there's 3 books facing with the covers forward, so they can choose what they want. Once they're crawling, they're going to crawl over to that bookshelf, and they're going to grab the book they want. They're going to crawl back to you with the book in the hand, kind of dragging it, like what they do when they're crawling. It's so gorgeous. And they're going to pass you the book and get you to read it to them, or they're going to point to it. And the same applies to everything else. When it's really simple and really ordinary, really accessible, they are just more settled and calmer and also joyful within themselves, because they're having some of their basic needs met. And then we have less power struggles and less resistance from them. So that's a place to start. Let me check my next bullet point. Yeah, we've said that. Basically, being with all children, being with humans is a collaboration, and the collaboration is as relevant as it is to your work colleagues and your partner that you live with, as it is to young children. It's a collaboration. It's not a, you do this, otherwise I'm going to withdraw this, or I'm going to reject you, or I'm going to behave in a certain way. Everything has got to be a collaboration, particularly in the Piccolini years, which is from walking to 3 years old, roughly. If we collaborate with them, if we see that they're struggling with something, if their behaviour is undesirable, they are hitting, or they are biting, or they are throwing something across the room they don't want to, or they've snatched a toy from their friend. My son went through a stage of being an absolute master at that. And it was only one of his friends he did it with as well, which was just so embarrassing. But we got through it. We muddled through, and it was all fine in the end. But this is all normal childlike behaviour, childlike behaviour. But if we can see it as a collaboration, we can't get into our heads that they are the bad guy and they need to be punished, or they need to be corrected, or even start thinking that we've done something wrong. Because when our child is the only one that's biting or hitting or snatching, we can get in our heads we've done something wrong. We end up, actually on a WhatsApp group with some friends, a couple of days ago, we were talking about how when you overreact as a parent, when you're worried about your child's behaviour, and then you lie awake at 2 a.m, feeling guilty about this, and then you start Googling what you've done to your child, and a child psychologist locally, because you've messed them up, because if you said this to them and you've shouted at them, and all this type of thing. So we really can go down that road of starting to feel that we're doing something wrong if our child is behaving in a normal way. But actually what they need, what they're dying for, is our collaboration. They're dying for our support. When they are behaving really, really inappropriately, instead of wanting to punish them, instead of wanting to reject them and push them away, pull them closer, lean into that uncomfortable feeling that you have, that your child is being the one that is hitting. Lean into that feeling that you have when it seems that your child is the one that is always being I don't want to say picked on, because that's not the appropriate term for very young children, but I don't know, if your child is always the child that other children are taking toys from, or always the child that seems to get pushed over, or whatever, it's not a they need to be stronger, and they need to stand up for themselves, and they need to push back, or whatever. It's what can you do to collaborate with them? What can you do to support them? It's removing all of these labels. What can we do to pull them closer, to empower them? I'll give you an example of leaning into really uncomfortable feelings, or leaning into really uncomfortable behaviour. My son Harry is a very physical and rumbustrous little boy. He was like the happiest, sunniest baby in the whole world, and he loves Olivia so much, and they play together. And Harry, depending on who he's with, can be quite rough with some children. He'll be very, very gentle with, and they'll play, fight and wrestle and things, and seem to have very close boundaries. Same with Olivia. He and her work out very well. And then other times, particularly if he's tired, then he can be more rough, and other people can get hurt. And this morning we've got a crazy schedule at the moment for various reasons, and he was really tired this morning. and he just kept on being really, really physical with me and jumping on me, and I could see he wanted to connect, and it was really, and you just feel that annoyance because, you know, he ended up pulling my earring, and then he pulled my hair by accident, something got caught, and then he pushed me, you know, and it's, and if we have a child who's like that, who's rumbusterous, or a child who's not, but they are either crying a lot or shouting a lot or whatever it is that really pushes our buttons, it's really, really hard, isn't it, to keep our cool? It's really, really hard to think outside the box in that moment. And this practice I've been doing with Harry recently, and it's a little bit part of non-violent communication. It's a bit part of somatic healing that I've done on myself in recent years. But I've been saying to Harry a lot, when he's behaving in this out of character way, where he's sort of like, everything is rough, everything may not be aggressive from his perspective, but certainly from my perspective, it feels aggressive. I mean, that might say more about me than him. Obviously, my perception is aggressive when he's only 3 years old. But anyway, I'm sure you know what I mean. So instead of getting annoyed with him, which is what I would used to do, I'd get annoyed with him and I would try my best to stop what's going on or connect with him or what have you, but that just wasn't working. What I've been doing for a couple of months now is when there's this more intense behaviour, and I know it's because he's tired or he's not feeling well or whatever it is, and I can't do anything to solve that in the immediate moment, I said, and this is exactly what I said this morning, hi Diane, hi Karim, I said to him, Harry, I think that something's not quite right with you. Can you feel, is there something happening in your body? Can you tell me about that? Do you feel something in your tummy? Do you feel something in your chest? What doesn't feel right for you? And the first couple of times I said it, he really pushed back. He would either push me again. It's not like he's directly hitting me, but it's kind of everything's too rough. He'll come to me for a cuddle, and then it's a bit too rough, and he'll end up like pulling my neck and grabbing my earring or something by accident. Do you know what I mean? Everything's just a bit too rough. It's not coming over and hitting me or hitting Olivia. It's just too much. There's no regulation, which there is usually with him. And so a couple of times I would repeat, you know, and it must have been, I was saying it on and off for 10 minutes because the behaviour kept on being there, and he actually was very, very annoyed with me saying it. And what I know with both of my children is the more annoyed they get with me when I'm asking them about what they're feeling inside their body, when I'm asking them to connect and communicate, the more they get annoyed with me, the more I know that they're getting through. So I'm getting through to them, and it is working, because the more resistance there is, the more they're like kind of like their defenses are melting, and they know that they can trust me. And I really want to get to this stage with Harry, and we all do with our children, is that they really, really trust us, so that when something's wrong, you know, I want Harry to tell me when he doesn't feel good in his body, when he's behaving out of character, when he's 3 years old. Because when he's 13, when he's 14, when he's 15, when he's 17, when he's 24, and something doesn't feel right in his body, I want him to know that something is right in his body. And I want him to come to me or his sister or his father and be able to feel safe enough to say, this doesn't feel right, but I don't know why. I want him to have that it's not just emotional intelligence, it's mind-body intelligence. So that we've got this intuition. Our intuition isn't just switched off in childhood because we are either institutionalized, or we are encouraged to repress our feelings, or we're just given the name of a feeling in a nice tidy little box without personalizing it. I want both of my children to be able to identify where they're feeling something in their body, and then we give them the vocabulary afterwards. And I'm going to do a live about this next week, actually, to talk more about the somatic approach. But back to my story with Harry. I've waffled, haven't I? And then after 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes of sort of asking him on and off, and then him feeling funny, he just sort of like threw himself on the floor bed in the sitting room, and he said, me being like this because me feel really tired. So I'm being like this because I'm feeling really tired. He said, I'm being rough because I'm feeling really tired. And then at that point I wanted to cry, because he's just getting it, you know, only after a couple of weeks of really doing this consciously every time that he's behaving out of character. He's getting it. He's only 3, and he's really, really, yeah, as I said, I wanted to cry, but I didn't. And I just said, what is it that you need? And then he said, oh, I don't feel anything in my body. I'm just really tired. And then we had a cuddle, and I said, well, you know, how would you want to connect? So he sat on my lap and I just rubbed his back a lot. He really likes me rubbing his back. And with Olivia, I rub her back and I rub her chest at the same time. So the heart chakra is at the front and the back it goes through the front and the back of the body. So with Olivia, she likes me rubbing her chest and her back, and that calms down. With Harry, it's just his back. And then it was so amazing because after that, well, after we'd had that reconnection, after he had calmed down and after he had been able to identify that he said the words, me being rough because me feel tired. Once that, it was different. And then we went to the stables, the Sustainable City this morning. And he was great and he was calm all the way. And then when we got there, we had breakfast with friends, but he wanted to go to the stables first. And all through breakfast, you know, on and off, he was really struggling. You know, in retrospect, we should have done the horses first because that's really what he wanted to do. But I didn't think ahead, actually, because he really loves horses. They really are his passion. And I think him to be really tired and then make him wait another hour and a half, that was not good on my part. But he was so amazing. Again, he just said, I really want to, he was kind of banging the table in the restaurant and, you know, I could see something wasn't right. And I said, oh, what's happening for you, Harry? And he said, me just really want to go and see the horses. And he said, oh, I don't want to be in this cafe. I don't want to eat breakfast. I don't want to be here. I want to go to the stables now. And again, I was able to validate that and say, you know, I hear you and I'm really sorry. And maybe we should have gone to the stables first. We're just going to finish and then we'll go. And then one of Olivia's friends said, oh, what's wrong with Harry? And I said, he's feeling really bothered. And he was like, yeah, me feeling really bothered. And so it's just really amazing that he's starting to be able to express this. And I know from the way I've reacted before when it hasn't been appropriate, that if I've got angry with him at the beginning of the day for just being tired, for just being rumbustious, for just being out of sorts, then the rest of the day is going to go badly. But today it was different because I responded differently, and I knew that trying to shame him into not being rough, trying to tell him off for not being rough, that wasn't going to work. He needed to connect. He needed to feel in his body what was wrong with him, and then he needed to know that I'm on his side. And that's really, I think, what I want to say, that our children need to know that we are on their side. And that doesn't mean that we're being permissive. It doesn't mean that we're not having any boundaries. It just means that we see the best version of them. We trust in the best version of them. We trust in their innate goodness. And we know that if they are behaving in an undesirable way, they need our support. They don't need our punishment. They don't need us to placate them with tricks or toys or sweets or stickers or anything like that. They just need us to be there for them. They need us to see them. Every human being needs to be seen and needs to feel seen and needs to feel heard. And that's what our children need in these situations. Nothing else than just our absolute presence and our understanding. And this is really a passion of mine for my family, but also for enriching environments, and on a bigger scale, if that doesn't sound too fanciful. But you know, I really believe that a world where, you know, children are seen and children are heard and children feel understood, they grow then into adults who feel seen and feel heard, so have the capacity to see and hear other people who are like them, other people who are not like them. These are children who have grown up with empathy as part of a way of life. So they will want to raise up other people. They want to uplift other people. And that seems to me like a path that we want to travel on with humanity, actually, where we remove all the masks. And I don't mean that because of COVID. I mean, we remove all of the ego, and we remove all the masks and the shields and the armory and the guards that we have up that prevent us from really, really connecting with each other. We can start by really, really connecting with our children, so that they feel seen and so that they feel heard. And so I think that's what I wanted to say. Let me check my bullet points. If there's anybody who has any questions, then please ask away. I know people have dipped in and out, but do ask some now. Hi, Helena. How are you? How are the boys? I'm just going to check some bullet points that I haven't missed anything. Oh, an alternative to, if our child's behaving really undesirably, a sentence that really works for me with Olivia and Harry is, I can see this isn't working. Let's find another way. Whether they are good. Any tips on morning routine before school? Tell me what specific area, Helena, would you like to talk about regarding morning routine before school? Actually, the sentence I'm about to say might answer your question. Any situation where there's either undesirable behaviour or they're not managing to do what you need them to do in a certain time frame, we can just sit down and say, this isn't working, let's find another way. This isn't working, let's do this differently. Lots of resistance to wearing uniforms. Oh yes, yeah, that's an interesting one. I would offer a choice, and this is what I do for Olivia. I would say that the uniform is what you wear to school, and that's just the way it is. But they can choose where they put their uniform on. They can choose to put so take basically the resistance out by getting them to choose where they'd like to put it on. Would they like to put their uniform on at home before they leave the house, or do they want to put it on in the car just before they get to school? And I know you're going to say, but that's going to take 5 minutes longer and all of that stuff. But is that a way of getting them out of the door? And then when you're in the car and you've had a car journey of 10 minutes or however long your commute is, they're going to be in a different frame of mind, because you can sing songs on the way, you point things out, you'll go past a building site and you'll see diggers and they would have forgotten the resistance. And then it's actually quite fun to get changed into their uniform in the car because there's not really enough space. I've done this with Olivia a couple of times because not everyone in her class wears uniform. And so she says that she doesn't want to. And it's only literally been a handful of times, but each time I say, okay, you can put your uniform on here, or you can put uniform in the car. And it's quite and it's quite fun because then like when you're trying to put your arm in, like you bang it on the roof of the car, and it's quite comical. So I think it can be really really playful, and your boys are at the age that I think they'd still find that type of thing quite funny. The silly stuff they really love, don't they? And well, maybe until 12, don't they? They really love the silly things like that, and it is really really funny. So maybe try that. Getting ready in general, do you mean like brushing their teeth and stuff like that? It's basically removing as much of the power struggle as you can. Think of creative ways that you can give them choices in, I don't know, the order in which they do things, anything like that. Like, they don't want to put their uniform on, so let's go in our pajamas to the car. But if you want to wear your pajamas in the car, then you've got to brush your teeth right now before you leave the house, otherwise the deal's off. Something like that. Your boys are a bit older, so you can really be quite creative with the ideas, and you can be because they're understanding a lot more, and their language is great. Pushing. You want to try and also there's that resistance. When Olivia first started at Montessori in January, there was a lot of that resistance in the morning, and I felt myself getting really annoyed, and there must be because of what happened to me, because I was getting ridiculously annoyed about this, and I would have to leave the room to calm down. And then when I just thought, okay, I'm going to completely just let all of this melt away, and what I would do is, and obviously this takes a lot of organisation, but I would just sit on the floor and say to Olivia, put the sand timer on for 5 minutes and say, in 5 minutes it's going to be time to get ready, but I'm going to sit here on the floor, and if you'd like help, then you can just let me know, you can come to me. Or maybe just the fact that we're all bustling around in the morning, that can be quite unsettling. So, and I think what happened for me is that the fact that then I just sat on the floor, and then Olivia didn't feel the rush anymore. She even says to me now, like, I don't like rushing, don't rush me. It could be because it's such a busy time. Is there a way that you could just sit down and, I don't know, in their bedroom or sitting room or somewhere where they can feel that there's like a moment of calm before the tornado happens, of getting out the door and getting to school. And these transitions are so difficult for children. It's difficult for us. I still I still find getting out of the house hard, whether or not I've got the children with me. You know, these transitions are massive. The transition, they've had transition from sleep to waking, and then coming back into family life, as it were, and then they're going to go out the door in a completely different environment. And school is weird at the moment, isn't it? The masks are weird, the separation's weird, the bubble's weird, everything is weird. So it's not surprising that there is this resistance. A question, please. If my daughter refuses to remove the food she dropped on the floor, although I'm asking her gently, don't worry about it. Just say, you're not able to do it this time, let me do that for you. Say it with a smile on your face, and say it genuinely from your heart with love. We don't want to get into situations where they're forcing them to do anything, particularly pleasure, Helena. Let me know how it goes. Just send me a message and or WhatsApp and let me know how it goes. Nanam, yes, so she'll try and play and get your attention. Yes, exactly. Don't get, honestly, the food dropping on the floor, anything like that, it is not worth getting into an argument about it. Your answer to everything is, if you can't manage it this time, I'd love to take care of that for you. That is the answer to everything. That is an answer even, when they're older. Now I will say to Olivia and Harry, are you able to manage that yourself? No, I said the other way around. So they suggest, I say, can I help you, or are you able to manage that yourself? And if we need to do it for them, that's okay. It's more of a powerful message that we are collaborating with them. That's the message, that we are there for them, that they are safe, that it's okay to say no, they don't want to do something. In a Montessori classroom, children are meant to put their work back where it belongs every single time. But sometimes you get the occasional child who won't, who's not ready to, who doesn't want to, because they don't feel confident enough, or whatever the reason is. The other children in the class will put their work back, the other child's work back, time and time and time again. And then when the child is ready, she will do it properly. So don't worry. There's nothing that you can do to make her do it. There's nothing that you're doing wrong. There's nothing that she's doing wrong. She has a resistance about it at the moment. The main thing we can do is say, I can take care of that for you today. You can't manage it. Acknowledge that it's just like a temporary thing. Almost give it's that subliminal message. You can't manage that today. I'll more than happy to help you out, or whatever you're going to say. You're sending a subliminal message that this isn't a problem. This is not a big deal. You can handle it, and maybe tomorrow you'd like to do that. Maybe tomorrow you feel like you'd like to sweep the floor or use a dustpan and brush. That's as simple as that. Does that help? Does that make sense? And we also try not to get annoyed. I know it's so annoying, and it's really annoying, because the thing is that we are annoyed with ourselves in these moments, because we see that our child needs something that isn't quite, there's something that isn't quite working for them. And what really used to bother me a lot more than it does now is I thought to myself, there's something I'm missing here. I'm not joining the dots up here. What am I missing? And my annoyance would be more about myself. Like, he doesn't want to do this. She doesn't want to do this. She's really resisting. Why isn't she? And I would be so annoyed at myself that I wasn't getting it. I was missing something. There was something in the jigsaw puzzle that I wasn't understanding. And that's what I would get annoyed about. So honestly, her dropping food on the floor and not wanting to clear it up is not a big deal. It's tiny. If she drops food on the floor intentionally during meal times, then that is a sign that she's no longer hungry. So that's a separate issue, but just in case, obviously, if this is just accidental food, that's fine. But if our child starts dropping food on the floor intentionally during meal time, then that's a really good sign that they don't want to eat anymore. And so we can remove the food with love, not with threats or punishment, just with love. I hope that helps. Let me check my bullet points on rewards and punishments. Instead of punishing them when they get angry, when they have this crazy rage that sometimes young children have, just acknowledge it. I see you're really, really angry. How can I best support you? You can say, how can I best support you, to a 2-year-old. They are going to understand what you mean from the tone of your voice, from your body language. Even if they don't quite understand the language yet, they are going to understand that you are a safe person. They are going to understand that you support them. I mean, I've got annoyed with Olivia and Harry more than I would like to admit, and said the wrong thing and responded in the wrong way. But what I do know is that the times where I've got it right, in terms of I've collaborated with them, I've responded to them, those really, really make a difference. We may say the wrong things 5 times in a day, but can we respond appropriately? Can we just say, I see you're really, really angry. What can I do best to support you? What can I best do to support you? Those things like that. It's how can I help? Basically, that's what we want to say. We don't want to say, you're doing something wrong. We just want to say, how can I best support you? Because that's what we would want from a partner. That was what we would want for a friend. You know, if we were flipping out, we wouldn't want someone to, we've had a really bad day and we've got a headache and someone cut us up on the way home, which happens a lot, right? We don't want actually our partner or a friend to say something negative to us. That we just want to be heard. We just want to be seen. And our children are the same. It's okay to say to a child who's having a tantrum, I can see you're really angry. What can I do to support you? It's okay to sit on the floor and let them release and let you know what's wrong. Let them release those feelings that they may have been holding on to or may not have been holding on to. Maybe they have this huge rage in this moment, and that's okay. They're growing. Their brains are growing hugely. All I want to say is it's all okay. They can be the best version of themselves when we are the best version of ourselves. Children, what was I going to say? There was one other, one really good point about rewards. Sorry, I forgot to say. I missed this bullet point. Rewards don't work. The sticker charts and star charts and also going into praise is that they actually decrease enjoyment. There's these really fascinating studies done on children and creativity. And when children were given rewards for doing a drawing or a picture, they were actually less creative. The pictures were less detailed than when they were doing free drawing with no outcome. And they spent less time doing the drawing or the art or whatever artwork it was. So that's really, really interesting. Rewards actually, the first point is it limits, it takes away the joy of doing something. It takes the joy of doing something that they enjoy anyway. It takes away the joy of accomplishing something. That's the first thing. And the second thing about rewards is that the more we give, the more they're going to have to get bigger and bigger. So for your 2-year-old who can get a sticker saying good boy or good girl, you know, that's going to be a 4-year-old who's going to want a chocolate. That's going to be a 6-year-old who's going to, I don't know what, you know, I'll get to Olivia being 6 in 6 weeks' time, so we'll see what 6 is like. But do you know what I mean? The rewards have to get bigger and bigger. It's like a bigger hit that they're going to need in order to comply, because it's manipulative behaviour, and children will know they're being manipulated. It's not a nice feeling, is it, being manipulated? So that was the other thing I wanted to say about rewards. I think I've covered everything else. We want to give them unconditional love. So no rewards, no punishments. The middle ground for that is a prepared environment that they have what they need at their fingertips. And the middle ground in terms of our responses emotionally is, what can I do to support you? This isn't working. How can I best help you? Let's find another way. I can see you're really angry. I'm going to be here right with you whilst you're angry. I'm going to support you. You let me know when you know what it is that you need. That works really well as well. Where do you feel it in your body? I can see you're really angry at the moment. You're really upset at the moment. Where do you feel that in your body? Oh, thanks, Helena. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been so nice to see you. Thank you so much. If there's no more questions, then I will sign off. Goodness, it's been a long one, almost an hour. Thank you so much for joining and for all of your questions. I love the questions. They really help me think outside the box, and I hope they help everyone else who's viewing and who will view afterwards as well. Take care, and I look forward to next week. We're going to talk about the somatic approach to discussing feelings with our children. And until then, I look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great week and take care. Bye-bye.